This episode is brought to you by Boat Trader, America's largest boating marketplace. Whether you're buying, selling, or upgrading, the Boat Trader app makes it easy. With the biggest selection of new and used boats from dealers and private sellers. Browse, compare, and even apply for financing. All in one place. Download the Boat Trader app and start your search today.
Hey guys, this is Melissa Bachman. Are you ready to stop spooking deer before it's even time to hunt them? Then you need the new Flex S Dark cellular trail camera from SpyPoint. With a no-glow flash option, long-lasting solar power, and a ton of settings that can be changed anytime through the SpyPoint app, there are no more excuses for letting your deer get wise before the season even starts. So check it out for yourself and see why the SpyPoint Flex S Dark is the unstoppable and undetectable scouting tool you need for your next hunt.
Bow hunting all comes down to a moment. And in the moment, you want equipment on your bow that will get the job done. Trophy Ridge products are the tools bow hunters trust. React technology sights, rests, stabilizers, and quivers to help a bow hunter be successful in the field. And those tools are from Trophy Ridge. Join us at a Friends of NRA event where freedom, fun, and firearms come together like nowhere else. With more than 600 events held across the country, there's always one happening near you. From exciting games to exclusive auctions featuring one-of-a-kind firearms and gear you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're a lifelong hunter, a competitive shooter, or simply passionate about defending freedom, there is a seat for you. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you and get ready for a night you won't forget.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com and get over there. Check out their website. New look. There's a feature on there where you can compare the different pieces of clothing, and then take a look at that new Berber clothing. I think it's called the Saginaw. Really cool. It's like the Elkins on steroids. Pretty cool. Available only in the Tarnin. And that honestly is like one of my favorite patterns for whitetail hunting, and especially for that late season when you do need that extra bit of warmth. But there is some other stuff coming down the pike from them. Like some more lifestyle type clothing with the heat boost, and definitely like that grayling hoodie, stuff that you're just definitely going to want to check out. That grayling hoodie is like my favorite piece of gear, coupled with one of their vests. But doing that they have the grayling in just a regular brown sweatshirt type, so it's not camo, so you can wear it anywhere. So definitely get out there, check out their website, and pretty slick new stuff coming down the pipe from Huntworth. I was actually able to get over to the Latitude facility last week, I think, after the podcast had dropped, and got my hands on one of the Method 3s. Super cool. Like all of the construction, and going to be interested to see, I'm not a 2-panel guy, but this is supposed to be the one. So I was telling Jarrett while I was there, I think that I'm going to be a great, real life spokesman for this one, because I like the simplicity of like the Maverick, but this Method 3 has a magnet like strips that go all along it, so you don't have to line anything up. It's got the straps where you can pull it up, and it automatically, finds those magnets. The magnets find themselves, and the material is completely different for a saddle, more so like what they have in like the Ranger packs, kind of a similar feel, similar material. But the operator pouches for guys who are pretty happy with their setup, but maybe want to change one or two little things, those operator pouches are super cool. excited to check them out. And the way that they attach, really like that, allowing some versatility. They have these clips that go into the molly, and then they, just do like a normal buckle into that. But they're going to be selling those clips separately, so you could put those on other things. So you can make that kind of like a modular system. So pretty cool. Did see the new straps for the tree stands. Really different than the first generation. So those are pretty slick. If you're still running a tree stand, it might be something for you to take a look at. And you can use code BHC and save 15% over there. So definitely check that out, latitudeoutdoors.com. This podcast, we are talking to our buddy Andrew Comtois from Outdoor Driven, and fun podcast. Andrew, veteran, going through all the things, 100% disabled veteran, trying to get more veterans into the woods, to kind of find that peace, kind of find that quiet, that we all, kind of understand at those sunrises and things like that. So, really, working, he's kind of like a one-man operation. He's got some ambassador type, I forget what he called them, representatives, I guess, that are helping him out, but definitely looking for, some more guys that kind of have a story to kind of connect with these veterans and law enforcement, first responder types. So if you know anybody like that, definitely reach out to Andrew, as well as if you have any does that need to be killed, if you have any property that could be hunted that you'd want to donate, like a veterans hunt to, definitely reach out. What he's doing over there is great, great stuff. It's one of those things where there's a lot of us, and I've talked to a lot of other veterans who, they're like, well, I want it to go to somebody, I want it to go to somebody else, I want it to go to somebody else. But there are so many opportunities that Andrew has, and actually opportunities to help out. That may be, something that you can do to help connect and try and find that other guy. So fun podcast talking about his archery journey, from scout sniper to, where he's at, coming up, relearning archery, and, just what they're doing with Outdoor Driven. So really cool podcast. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. As always, thanks for listening. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And today we've got returning guest Andrew from Outdoor Driven on here. It's a veterans-centered nonprofit, along with, obviously with the outdoors, hunting and a lot of fishing here in the summer months and stuff like that. So just wanted to get on here and reconnect. I was actually over in his neck of the woods, but he pulled out of the event that he was at in years past, so I didn't get to catch up with him. So we decided to do it this way.
For good reasons, I pulled out.
How you been, man?
Dude, I've been good, man. I can tell you this. God has definitely been helping me along this way in this journey I'm on, and I'm very blessed with everything that's been happening with not only my personal life but the growth of Outdoor Driven. I mean, I'll talk about a couple things, but with the newest thing that we got right now is, that Mike Avery partnership. They just launched that Rapid River knife where 100% of the proceeds goes to Outdoor Driven, and that's only been, maybe not quite a week yet, and we already have over $1,200 raised just off of knife sales alone. So, I mean, that's super cool.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to send me that link. I'll put it up, but I guess jump right into that and tell us a little bit about the knife. Are you a knife guy?
Yeah, I am. It's embarrassing because I had a super nice pocket knife, and after I carry that, it's been through Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, dang, you're 10 years out of my 13 years in the Marine Corps. I've had this pocket knife, and the clip finally snapped on it. The tip of the knife, I mean, it finally bit the dust, and I've been carrying around this $30 Browning knife that the blade's bent. Like it's embarrassing to have it, but no, I enjoy having a good quality blade because, especially being an outdoorsman, I mean, you find yourself in tons of situations where, you know, that a pocket knife just comes in handy tenfold, and especially when it comes time to, gut that deer. I mean, you can't put a price tag on a good quality knife, especially when you're trying to, quarter up a deer and pack it out.
So what do you like? So your everyday carry knife that you broke the clip on, like what do you consider like a really nice knife?
Well, that one was a Spider Co. But the thing is, you gotta think, man. I mean, it's like, hey, what's a good AR-15 to own? I mean, dude, there's a new one being made every month, and it's just like knife companies, man. There's so many of them out there, and I can tell you that what I had as a Spider Co. was a good knife, and you can be like, I've never heard of that brand.
Yeah, so like my family's like really big. We get down these like rabbit holes. So my brothers were really into like knives for a while. I mean, and still like a little bit to be able to like identify one and look at it and say, okay, but like some of like the custom folders are like, in the $3,000-$4,000 range. And like, some of the Spider Co's, like actually one of my favorite knives. I've had a bunch of them. I keep breaking them with Spider Co Tenacious. I've broken the tips off a bunch of them, but for like $60, that's like the best,
Yeah.
$60 knife that, you can get, like in our opinion. And there, I have a Civivi right now that's a super cheap Amazon knife, but it's excellent quality, great knife. So like I was just wondering like what you consider like a good knife. So the style of the Rapid River knife, what is that?
So he made 500 total. They're all custom. It's got one of them has like Mike Avery talks the best about it. It's got like a red epoxy in there, which it talks a lot about like the blood and sacrifices for that were made. Kind of more going into like the veteran aspect of things. Serving our country and putting me on the spot now. I can't put myself, but the wood. I can't remember what the wood's made of, but it's it's a foldable pocket knife, and each one of them is handcrafted, through Rapid River. Again, the fact that Mike Avery picked us to be, the proceeds to go towards, speaks dividends on itself.
Yeah, that's wild. Like that's not what I would have expected either, because so I'm pretty familiar with Rapid River knives, but I'm not overly familiar with like them doing folders. So our property in the UP is we have to drive through Rapid River to get there. So Rapid River knives, like I've been in there, like I'm familiar with their knives, and then like Bark River knives and like the marble knife companies from up there. And so like my brothers and I think my dad went to one. I went to one with my father-in-law. Like Bark River knives used to have what they probably still do, what's called like the grind in, where you would go there to their factory and it's like a 2-day thing, and you get the run of the factory with their guys and you get to make a knife and you get to pick out the materials. Like you can take a blank or you can
cool.
Or you can take just a piece of steel and then shape it and then sharpen it. You pick out the materials for the handle, all sorts of wild stuff. So I would have expected it to be like a belt knife or something like that. So that the fact that it's a folder is pretty cool. So yeah. And for the listener, like I had no idea. It's not like, oh, I brought Andrew on to talk about like this knife for outdoor driven. Like I have no idea about this, but we, like I said, I'm pretty familiar with like knives and some of that stuff. So that's super cool.
Yeah, when you go on the website, it's literally the first knife that you can see. That I knew I had zero input on the design, make anything on the knife. It was just one that, it's the Mike Avery signature knife. Rapid River and Mike Avery are making $0 off this knife. And, that's what I thought was, really awesome. The fact that it's 100% of the proceeds, go straight into our nonprofit, which again, with our nonprofit, we always make a running joke whenever we're at like an outdoor show working at. I got like my volunteers with me, and we always get the question asked, but we jump ahead and try to beat people to the punch, and we say the three of us working right here, we have a combined salary of $0 a year. Like we don't get paid. So when people get knives like that or support our cause, 100% of the proceeds goes right back into the nonprofit.
Yeah, so last year as well, but I saw you up at Crystal. I mean, did you actually get to shoot the Total Archery Challenge this year?
I did, yeah. I had 4 volunteers that came with me this year, including myself, so that put us at 5. 2 of them actually got signed up to shoot the course at a knock time, and the other 3 of us, what we did was, I only shot 1 course just because, my main mission is to support and just drive outdoor driven, but, that day it was Saturday evening, after my buddy went and shot his knock time and they came back, me and the other 2 guys, we went out and we ended up shooting. Of course, I had to shoot prime, it's the kind of bow I got. So, we shot prime at Crystal Mountain this year, and that was my first time, shooting tack. And I just switched over to a thumb release, so probably not the best time to be trying to get comfortable with that, but I still took those 50, 70, 80-yard shots. I wasn't really grouping or anything like that. A couple high flyers, over the target and stuff. It was a humbling experience for me because like last year, I was the guy that I would go and just like a rifle, I would get my bow out 20 yards, fling 3 arrows, like, I grouped, I'm good. And, not really putting any more practice in. We had that conversation with that buck I had at, it was like 45 yards on the ground, just through a small hole window was all I had to shoot through, and I didn't trust myself. The year prior to that, I had basically in Michigan, a Boone and Crockett that was at 55 yards broadside. And I'm like, I don't shoot out that far. So between those 2 experiences, this year alone, I mean, I've already like over 1,000 arrows. I've been practicing a lot, not the last couple of months, but I still get my bow out, and just like what you and I had a conversation, I just in my garage, not even, it was like 10 yards. I'm picking a single point and I'm trying to hold on to it because I'm trying to get that consistency down with shooting my bow. And, being at Crystal Mountain was another big eye-opening experience for me, realizing the kind of time and effort you need to put in order to stay consistent to make those far shots and actually make it be an ethical shot.
Yeah, and that was one of the things last time we talked, and we've had a bunch of conversations, like not on the podcast or anything, about like your archery journey and wanting to be able to do that. And so what were your expectations versus like the reality of that? Because at the Total Archery Challenge, you can listen to people talk about it or whatever, and you can say like, oh, well, I would just walk up, and like, I don't think anybody does that. I mean, I guess I did that with my daughter shooting traditional archery and, on the short course, but I don't think as like a whole you do that. And, so for not only is it shooting 80 yards or 100 yards or whatever, but they're not necessarily like the easiest shots. There always is some sort of either obstacle or angle or, uneven footing or anything like that. So for you, going from 20 yards to 80 yards, like what was there like an oh shit moment? Like when you got out there and said, oh Jesus, like.
Well, I kind of got warmed up and I got spoiled because before this course, 2 weeks prior, I went out with Chris Ham puts on those HHA events, and I went to the Matthews shoot, not to go down the rabbit hole, but drove out to Wisconsin, got the tour of Matthews. Super cool to see just where the company came from and where it's at today. It's amazing. And the 3D course we shot out there is a new course. It's God's Country Stick and String. And when they told us that it is like world renowned, like ranked, like 3D course, they're not joking. I mean, the entire setup of that course is absolutely amazing. And that was really my big introduction into longer range shooting. But each target had a theme that I really enjoyed. Like each 3D target made sense. Like they had, rams and, goats that were up. So you're shooting either extremely, high angle or, low angle shooting down at these animals. The deer, they had a buck that was feeding from it looked like it was feeding from a tree with a doe behind it, and each target had a far and a close target that you can shoot at from one station. So that was like a big introduction to me into like just a good 3D course that was well rounded. And that's when I was driving back and I called you. I'm like, Adam, this is the coolest thing ever. And it really got that fire lit. And then when I got to Crystal, you know, the targets didn't make sense to me, like how they were. Just going from that to Crystal or just tackle, like the targets didn't make sense, the scenario. But what it was the challenge part because you're literally having to thread the needle on multiple shots, not 20, 30, 40 yards. I mean, you had I think there was one that there was like a goat that was bedded down and you were shooting uphill. So you were standing on a hill shooting up and there's a tree branch that was up right in the kill zone with it snapped over. So, I mean, you had to pick, like, am I going to try to shoot above or below this, or am I going to try to shoot back? Like, so it was extremely challenging. And I can see, just like golfers, how you have like a bad day. Like, my buddy, he was having a bad day and he shoots all the time. And I just, to see the frustration, just knowing that, like, I can make that shot. But that's the thing is, those courses are set up where you only get one arrow. You could sit there and like if no one's behind you and you got some time, like you can shoot an extra arrow, but like the way that course is set up, you get one shot and that's it. It's not it's a bad shot, I'm gonna take another one. It's like, no, that's your one arrow. Like, was it an ethical kill? No. Okay, well now you gotta move on and keep practicing, but then you got that in the back of your head, like, man, I just had two targets in a row that I just completely botched the shot on. And my one buddy was filming when he was doing this, and I think I lost like two arrows already. And I get clipped in, my thumb release, and I'm like, I'm having fun, and I don't know what happened. I got right here, and it popped off of my D loop, and the arrow just went like into the woods. And we're all just sitting there like, what just happened? And then as he's filming, he looked at me. He's like, "Are you still having fun?" And I just had to laugh. It was just one of those moments. Like, now that was my third arrow that I just lost, but yet, I was having fun, even though I wasn't shooting the best. It was just the experience. Like, I'm gonna take these shots now to know what is my capability moving into the 2025 archery season. Where am I comfortable making that ethical kill shot at? And I can honestly say, if anything comes within 50 yards all day long, there's going to be zero hesitation. I'm going to clip in, draw back, and as long as I got a presentable shot, like, I'm going to take it. And that's a huge step for me compared to last year.
Well, yeah, and that's, what I wanted to kind of like follow up with you on is because, we've had like all those conversations about, you shot that buck in Kansas, but you shot him with a crossbow because you didn't know what you're capable of, with a bow. And I'm like, dude, you just need to get out there and shoot and try it and all that stuff. And then you kept saying, like, I'm going to put more effort into this and all that. And I was asking you before the podcast, like, for you, it like blows my mind, like being like a school trained sniper. So like to shoot, 1,000 yards plus, and then to be like 3 arrows touching at 20 is good enough. Like, and to be able to like not, how do you, I guess I would have guessed that you would have like not had like a off switch for like precision or like what you're capable. And that's what you said, like kind of like what you're capable of, right?
Yeah,
So
I think a lot
how
of
do the
that
two
kinda-
correlate?
Yeah, I think a lot of that also came into, my upbringing into archery. I got into it when I was 12 years old. I went to hunter safety when I was 11. My first bow was like a $20 or $30 garage sale. I can't even tell you the brand of it, but it only had two pins on it, and I think we had it set at like 15 and 20. And the way I was brought into deer hunting, we used bay piles. So for me, that's 20 yards. And then joined the Marine Corps, became a machine gunner, And I had the privilege and the honor to get into the, Scout Sniper platoon, pass the NDOC, went to school, became a school trained Scout Sniper, you know, taking precision shots, accurately, no questions asked, 800 meters, and then, the occasional, hey, we're just gonna, we still have that capability, to shoot out to 1,000 meters and try to get those first round impacts on target. And then coming home, the area that I hunt in was Beaverton, Michigan, and my cousin was like, "Okay, well, you're a lot older now, so we don't bait." And he starts to kind of put the time in with me to show me, like, I never played win. I mean, I learned so much, and we're setting up by deer trails, and still, like, I'm not, like, the areas I'm hunting in are really thick, so it's still 20, 30 yards. Like, if you had a deer that's at 30 yards, like, that's a far poke. Well, my buddy, who was another scout sniper, Bob DeVisser, he's the one that forever changed the way I do deer hunting. Like, I have on video easily, this buck has to be 140, 150 plus, like, just a tank. And it's during the rut, he came crashing in, and he's in some thick stuff behind me, and I'm sitting there watching him, waiting for him to come out, and he walks out, and he's walking, all of a sudden now he's in a shootable area, which I ranged in. It's like, he's quartering away from me, walking away at like 40, 45, 50, he's still walking away, and I took a video of this buck, and I said to my buddy, and he's like, "Dude, grunt, snort, wheeze, doe bleed." I'm like, "What's a snort, wheeze?" He's like, "You do it with your mouth." I'm like, "How do you make a mouth call a snort, wheeze?" Like, just completely uneducated, I never had like a true mentor that took the time, and I'm like, "Dude, I don't have a grunt call, I got a doe bleed." And sure enough, after that, we sat in his backyard, and that's all we did on his deck. Like, we're just practicing the grunt calls and the doe bleeds and the snort wheezes. And, I was talking about, shooting and stuff, and he's like, the same thing. Like, man, we would go to a range and we would put thousands of rounds downrange. He's like, you need to be doing that with your bow. And that's where the switch kind of came on, because when I had that Boone and Crockett that was at 55 yards, I just thought back, like, I did not put the time in. I wasn't shooting. And then that my Kansas buck, the exact same scenario. And that's when I realized I really need to get back into this. And when I do, I got to put that mindset back in of, that precision firing as a scout sniper. You can't just, sit there November 14th, shoot, a few rounds. Okay, I'm good at 100 yards, and then go sit in the deer woods. That's a skill set. If you're only going to shoot 100 yards, that's fine. But, in Michigan, farm fields, I mean, you can take these 300, 400, 500 yard shots in some cases, and some people are like, that's absolutely insane. But some of these areas that, during rifle season, I've shot doe at 500 yards. That's because I also was going to the range shooting a rifle, and my training kicked in. So, that was something that a hard pill I had to swallow, was the fact that my buddy's like, "Man, you are not practicing enough." He's like, "It is just like when we were in the military. You got to put the time in, and you get out what you get. What you put in is what you get out."
Yeah, and it's funny because you were talking about, like, where I was telling you just to take those short shots, and you're just shooting those little tiny distances, but trying to focus on that spot. And I couldn't help but think about, like, how many hours, like in boot camp, you sat staring at that white barrel with the little black dots on it, just snapping in. When you got the piece of paracord on your bolt and you're cycling it yourself. And just,
I don't even know if they do that. I think that's too old. I think we're getting old, Adam.
I just remember, doing that and having like a rattlesnake like come right between everybody, and they're like, "All right, just leave it alone," all that stuff. But it's the same, it's the same thing, right? As you're just focusing on the process, just to get that muscle memory. And that's just what's wild to me. Like, I had Skylar Summers on last year before. I think I've had him on twice, but he's also school trained scout sniper, and he's got tons of views he's got the beautiful videos on YouTube of him missing these giants. And I'm like, how did, you said it's a tough pill to swallow. Like, I'm like, how do you mentally process that after like everything that you've put in, into your like military career to get where you've got, and then to be like, oh, well, it doesn't it doesn't transition over. And like for me, I was like a terrible shot, like pizza box, like that. Just not well, for me, it was pretty much exactly like what you were saying, right? So like every time on qual day, like I would, make the adjustments on my rifle, do everything, and shoot fine, But then, like what you were saying about, go out in November 14th and just trust the dope on your rifle. It's good enough, right? So the next day, like my rifle was good yesterday, so I don't need to make any adjustments. It must just be me. And I never made any adjustments. And so, I didn't make the 2 clicks this way or 2 clicks that way. And I was just like following around the target every time, every single day. So yeah, terrible shot. And then when you come to bow hunting, like that's why I like bow hunting, is because with a rifle, like I feel like I have no problem shooting a deer with a rifle. It's not, I like to be right on top of them, because it just wasn't fun anymore,
I'm not going to say there's not a challenge, because don't get me wrong, like there's always a challenge with any kind of hunting you do, but you give me a rifle and I haven't shot long range and, it's been a little while, but, I could confidently get behind a rifle, and even we'll just stick at the Michigan 100 yards. You're in the woods, 100 yards. That buck is walking 100 yards. You can put that crosshair right on him and pull the trigger, and it's like, great. But, you got that buck that's now 60 yards, and it's like, ooh, I know I've been practicing like 50-55, but it's like, God, it's 5 more yards. And then you're just sitting there, and now you're playing that mental game, like, do I or don't I kind of scenario, where a rifle, it's just like a no-brainer. Like, if you're in the woods, for the most part, as long as you can see them and there's not too much brush in your way, like, you can just let her rip, but when you got that bow, there's so much more. And that was the thing too, is, at TAC, my buddy was filming me shoot so that I could rewatch myself. And I had a kisser button, which I got rid of, and now I got the
nose button.
And the nose button, because he watched on 3 different targets. That string the kisser was still here, but that string was dead center on my nose. I had it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. And he's like, just having that little bit difference of the string on my nose was throwing my shot off. And that's what he was saying. He's like, dude, you are not anchoring consistently. And after we got back from that, I called you on the ride home. It made me realize, like, man, there's a reason in boot camp you snapped in for hours on end. There's a reason, when we're shooting, in the sniper platoons, like off of tripods in these positions that, we're dry firing, we're practicing. And, I'm like, well, where I live at now, I can't take these far. I don't have anything I could shoot. I could shoot in my garage. Maybe if I get in the middle of the road, I could possibly get 20 yards. And you're like, man, I'm in my house at what, 8-9 yards, I think you said? And
yeah.
that made me realize, I'm like, that is just focusing on the basic fundamentals and just building that muscle memory. And that's what I've been doing. Have been doing it every day, but, I've been getting out at least, 1 to 3 times a week in my garage, just even if it is for 5-10 minutes, just to keep practicing, trying to figure out what am I doing wrong, because there's something that I'm doing wrong that I am constantly hitting a little bit to the right, and I'll get a couple perfect and I'll be slightly right again. And I'm like, is it my grip? Is it this? And then you start running through all those scenarios, and it's just nice to know that I can't blame the bow. I got to blame myself. But, this year is going to be my year with my bow.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because like that's one thing I took away from like, shooting in the Marines and shooting poorly, and then going and shooting archery, especially in the like indoor league with John, because John's a great shot. Like he's really, really focused and really understands it, and he's always adjusting his sight, this way, this way, this way. And he said, like, you do those things where it's a little bit left this time, a little bit right, and then you're just consistently left and nothing changed. He always gives it like 1 or 2 clicks, and he's like, does that click really matter at 15 yards? Probably not. But that one click, like mentally tells, like, it's like a reset for you. It's like saying, oh, well, I did adjust it. And now, kind of like a reset for yourself. So, but yeah, like for me, shooting inside at like, I think it's like 9 yards. And I do it with trad bow, do it with the compound bow. And when I do it, I just, I used to think that blind bailing was just the stupidest thing ever. I was like, why would you do that? And then doing it and just focusing on, as you said, you were moving to a thumb release, just focusing on like the mechanics of the release. And for me with a hinge, like trying to work that and not get panicked and just try to be smooth, try to be focused and just let it go off. And it's just like what you were talking about with a rifle. Like it's muscle memory. You've done it so many times that like you can pick up that rifle and the rifle might not be on but if you shot, 5 rounds, your group is going to be way better than most people because of trigger control, breath control, body position, all that stuff. Like you're going to be consistent. And I think that that's what's important with, anything archery. And then, taking those more difficult 100-yard shots or 70-yard shots or 60-yard shots, man, that 20, 25-yard shot is nothing. The target's huge. Your pin is huge. Like everything looks great,
Yeah.
So for you, like what plans do you have this year for like the archery season?
Well, me personally, this is going to be eating up. I don't know if people are going to watch the video now. I was just pointing out my shirt for Outdoor Driven. So I am 100% disabled veteran, and it's going to be my first year to try to get out, for the Liberty hunt. So I'm going through an outfitter out in the thumb, and I'm hoping the first nice buck and velvet. If there's a couple out there, like I'm going to get one of my rifle, but the intentions behind that is then that way, like, okay, last year I tried hunting when I could, which was I got out 4 times with my bow, and it was the most random times that I could get out. And I mean, I actually went out in the woods last year when it was probably, not joking, 25, 30 mile per hour winds. Like, I'm not going to see a deer, but it's literally the only chance I have. And I'm like, who knows? Maybe I might just get lucky. I didn't. I didn't see anything, but and that kind of ate at me is the fact that I didn't put enough time in for myself to get out. And, I ended up shooting a doe January 7th with an extended rifle season that they had. Well, this year, I'm hoping I can try to get something with a gun early on so that I can kind of put all my eggs in the one basket for the rut. I got around 5-6 days this year for the rut that over on the west side of the state that my other sniper buddy, we call it a rutcation. I don't know if that's been trademarked or not. Probably not. I think it's been used probably a million times, but my buddy told me that last year. I'm like, that's so cool. We're going to do a rutcation. Next month, we're going to go readjust cameras again. Right now we got our trail cameras set up for summer patterns and stuff. It's the same area we've hunted 3 years in a row now, so we're really getting it dialed in. Going to adjust cameras in September to kind of get ready for where we think that they're going to be at for this fall. And really, I'm going to try to get out opening day. And then after that, I mean, my focus is still ultimately serving our veterans and first responders. And, we just got some property that we're working on right now to try to get some blinds out there, a couple of ladder stands, and, I picked out a few trees that we're going to do some saddle hunting in, hopefully, because we got partnered up with Latitude Outdoors. So, we're going to take the stuff that they generously, donated to us, and we're going to try to put some veterans and first responders in these saddles to at least give them an experience. But, again, really it's that Liberty hunt, and then after that it's going to be all in on the rut, and we're going to see what happens for that.
And so what do you have like lined up? Like, I guess take me through like last year or whatever, like a typical like hunt through Outdoor Driven. Like what are you guys doing?
Yeah, so we did 2 rifle hunts last year, and then we also did one deer camp where we went up to Traverse City with Oh, Andy, don't kill me. I'm drawing a blank.
Hutchie.
Yeah. No, the Deer Camp podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hutchie.
Okay. There we go. He opened up his house to us, and we took out 3 veterans last year during late October, and he opened up his property for these 3 people to come out there, and we kind of did a mini deer camp. Huge success. No one killed anything, but you know, you can't measure a hunt or a trip based off of whether or not you harvest something or not. If one of them would have harvested a deer, like I would have been on cloud 9, but the fact that all 3 of them were saying like they seen deer, but again, it's archery season. There's a girl that she actually had an 8 point that she was in a box blind and she drew back and he just by the time they stopped, she had to switch windows and there was a chair in the way, so she had to come back out of full draw. And as they were moving the chair, they banged into something, and that buck hurt him, and then just took off. But you know, she was saying she's like, I've never drew my bow back on a deer, and she's like, I was literally shaking with. She had buck fever, and she admitted it, and I was like, that is cool, like. And a few weeks later, she sent me a photo. She ended up going out and killing. It was a small spike and then a doe, but those are her first deer, and the smile on her face, I'm like, that right there is what it's about. But this year, we're gonna try to hit deer season hard because, I would love to try to get some more of these men and women out on a couple deer hunts. Whether it's, I know we got some more doe hunts set up, but with the passion I have for archery, I'm really hoping we can set up and get one of these lucky veterans or first responders on a deer with a bow or even a crossbow. It doesn't matter to me. And at the end of the day, it's just giving them that opportunity to get out.
Yeah, archery I think would be a hard thing because unless somebody is like into bow hunting and like they already have all the equipment and the know-how, I mean, in a weekend or whatever, it's going to be really difficult to get somebody proficient. Like where with a rifle, on some of these fishing trips that you do, like you can teach somebody how to reel in a fish. You can teach somebody how to, be safe with a rifle and kind of walk them through it. With a bow, especially a vertical bow, like holy crap.
Yeah. Well, then that kind of brings me into this. It's something that it's still not 100% set up. I want to do it this year, but I didn't want to rush it. So everyone says like the hunting industry, if you look at the number of hunters each year is going down. I know you could probably talk more numbers, but they also say the same about archery. They said it's a dying trend, but when I go to Total Archery Challenge and I go to this like the HHA events and I see the hundreds and thousands of people that travel and show up with bows to shoot, I'm like, man, I don't see it. But there's another organization, Index Archery, another veteran-owned nonprofit. They give bows away, and I was trying to figure out how I could, do something by giving a bow away. And then I heard about this organization. It's like, man, I don't like competing, into like other people's, markets. Like that's like their big thing. I'm like, well, how can I separate myself from that? Prime Archery is someone that, we were very blessed that we got partnered up with. The same thing with HHA Sports. We also have Vapor Trail and Stoger. Stoger has stabilizers. All of those companies have donated to me stuff to put together a bow. And what we want to do is currently I got 2 bows. One of them's going to be fully set up, but come January, February of 2026, we're going to do a giveaway, and we're going to give this bow away to a veteran or first responder that wants to get into archery. I'm not looking for someone that's been in it. They're not going to get hooked up with a brand new bow. Like we're looking for someone that has never really been into archery. And I now have people on the west side of the state. I got people up north, a couple guys down south. So like I have people in the right spots. So no matter where this person is in Michigan, they can link up with any of my reps, and it's going to be a mentorship. We want to mentor this person and actually teach them how to shoot a bow, teach them how to scout. And we want to start getting into more programs like that, trying to do more mentorship stuff. I'm in the process of trying to get my hunter safety certification so I can become an instructor, so that not only can I help, any veterans, first responders, to teach them their hunter safety, but then also, again, that next generation, the youth. We want to try to get more of these people where I can sit there and we can mentor them, teach them how to do all this stuff, and then take them out on these properties that we have already set up and show them, like, this is why we picked this spot, but then let them actually get out there during archery season where we know this person has put the time in, and try to get them out there and actually hopefully have them, harvest one of their first deer with their bow.
Yeah, I think, a lot of that, like what you say there, is probably what's hindering people the most, is like that whole mentorship thing. Because that's one thing that we found, like with our Patreon camp and the guys that we've brought in, a lot of these adult onset hunters, you have to either watch it online or listen to podcasts or whatever, but it's really difficult to walk into the woods and know exactly what, people are talking about. And then, it's funny, my cousin, he's been wanting to get it into archery. He's over in Wisconsin, and his buddy, he talks about, we had this family property and blah, 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 blah. But every time I go on public, the public that butts right up to our property, people are right up against it. And we lost the property, a million people, and it's their spots. And there's all these public land horror stories. So people are afraid to go on public land. And I'm like, look, next year, I don't really have anything planned for out of state hunting. So I'm like, I'll hunt Wisconsin. I don't care. I'll come over there. We'll find some public. But you almost have to have somebody to show you either what you're looking for or where to go, or to take that intimidation factor out of it. Because it really, I guess I've just been doing it long enough now that I guess I'm less afraid of getting lost. I'm not worried about running into people. And I think maybe going out of state helps that a lot, because you're just thrown into an area where you have to figure it out. But I don't know. But I think not, if you didn't have someone to kind of show you and kind of that crawl, walk, run type mentality, I think that's what's keeping people out of the woods.
Yeah. And, a big game changer for me has been saddle hunting, and that's why with the guys from Latitude, they're just an amazing group of humans, man. I've talked with a lot of them, and just, they're not afraid to open up and tell you just anything that you want, any knowledge you want, they have it. And they're even admit hey, this is what works for me. This is what works for us, but that style of saddle hunting, to sit there and just think that I literally have everything that's on my back, and I can just, in a backpack, and I got the saddle on, I can walk through the woods and just honestly pick any tree in general that's, obviously within reason, that's, safe enough for a human to be up in, and you can get up in that tree. And that was a huge thing for me was, if we can take this person, teach him how to shoot a bow, I'm not going to go on teaching him really good at it, but teach him how to shoot a bow and let him know, give him an archery target, and just talk about what you told me. Again, I've said it, it's probably my fifth time now. You're shooting 9 yards in your house. You can teach someone to shoot, but then you give them this target. You can go in your basement, go in your garage, and just get those repetitions in. And then when you can, on a weekend, drive out to some state land, back up 20 yards, shoot, go back 30, 40, 50, just keep backing up. Because once you build that foundation, you're good. But then, now they have a bow they've been practicing. Then you get this, when there's still snow on the ground, take them on public land and just go scouting, just go walking, show them, this is what you're looking for, so that, I grew up hunting private property. And when my cousin, when he moved out of state and I lost it, I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm like, the horror stories. Is all you hear is, oh my God, private, public property. And then, you see those guys from the hunting public, like they're putting down monster bucks on public land, but it's also because they know what they're looking for and they're scouting, they're putting the time in. It's like, yeah, you can go out on public land. And I was up in my saddle one time and on public, and I seen two guys come walking towards me. And of course, I got an Onyx and I looked and I'm like, well, I see where they possibly came from. We didn't know that there was another access road over that way. And once they got within a reasonable distance, I gave a couple grunt calls. They stopped. I waved. They waved. They walked away like they were respectable. I've heard other people that like, well, they'll just set up right by you. But again, with the saddle, I recently have been trying to go back on certain public land where I'll go a couple miles back. If I shot a deer, it would absolutely suck. But I tell myself, I'm like, if there's someone as crazy as me that is going out this deep into the woods, into a swamp, knowing that if they shot something, like it will take them hours to get this dang thing out of there, they deserve to be back there with me. Like I can't get upset at that. But it's just that mindset, everyone's afraid to go on public. You just got to figure out the right public area that works for you and what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to go to shoot a deer, or are you one of those guys where you want to shoot the deer? Like you want to shoot something that you want to take pride in and mount and put on the wall.
And I think that's a big part of that mentorship thing too. And, I feel like I'm just like beating my own drum here, but like that's the whole like point of, trying to help people and trying to do that. And, my whole, world's worst bow hunter thing is like to open people's eyes, I guess, to the fact that it can just be fun. Like it doesn't always have to be about, mega inches and all this stuff, because, if you've never shot a deer, that's whatever is in front of you, if it's a spike, 4-point, 8-point, or Boone and Crockett, like if you've never shot one that's that big, like there's no reason for you to wait for a bigger one. And, just like you talked about, like with the girl on your veterans hunt that had buck fever and all the things that went wrong, like if you're waiting to, if there's nobody to tell you that that's okay, and you're just going to wait and you're going to try to go out there and shoot a deer and you're waiting for that Instagram worthy buck or whatever, and then all those things go wrong because you didn't put in the practice on shooting lesser animals to get to that point, and what made me think of that is when you were talking about, going out 2 miles with the saddle gear and all that, like if you don't know what you're looking for, then that's why go out there in the first place, just to wander around. And I think that can be just equally as intimidating, if you don't know like what's a rub, what's a scrape. And, it's funny because I've been in the woods with people who talk a really big game, and they tell you all this stuff, and then you go scout with them, or you go walk in the woods with them, or you go hunting with them, and they're like, is that a rub? Is that a scrape? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you said that you knew all this stuff, like you're going to show me stuff. And it's like, until you actually have put in the time, just like behind that snapping barrel, just like shooting those arrows in your basement, you got to go out there and, kind of have those moments to where it clicks. And like, whether it clicks the one way where you're like, I set up on this and I thought this was good, but I didn't see anything. All the deer were over there. Or you walk over there and then you say, I saw this and all the deer were over here, so maybe now I need to look for that. Without being out there in the woods and being in those situations by yourself, you kind of need somebody to kind of help you along and to kind of guide you through those failures,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what my buddy Bob did, like when he was like, hey, let's go deer hunting. He took me out and he showed me on Onyx, like, hey, there's a deer shell right here. This is the tree you want to go up in. And at the time I had a climber and, I went up in that tree. And then after I had that freaking big buck that I filmed, I'll send you the video afterwards, man. You're going to be like, what did you do? he was like, man, he started asking me all the questions. I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. I'm like, this is what I know. After that day, like he took the time with me and, we were walking deer trails and he was showing me like, you know, like deer bedding. I'm like walking by and I'm like thinking like, oh, the deer are bedding down and like all this thick stuff and whatever. And, we're going by and he's like, there's deer bed right there. And I look over, I'm like, how? And it's just that experience. But when you have someone that is showing you that is a deer bed, and then they're like, this is a historic, scrape. It's a historic scrape. Like that's an active scrape, like year round. Like they're gonna constantly come by and keep that open. And I'm like, I thought they only do that during the rut. He's like, no. And then when we went out on our outdoor driven property that we partnered with the Saginaw Basin Land Conservancy, I walked over and sure enough, I followed the deer trail and I found a nice tree and I look over and right underneath it, I can see a licking branch. I can see where there's a nice scrape and I can see some of the hoofs still in it. So I know like this is an active scrape and that was July when we did this. But again, like I know what to look for a licking branch. I didn't know what that was before. And it's all that stuff that I wasn't really taught until a couple years ago that, you know, I can take someone brand new in the woods and I can teach them a little bit. I by no means am someone I would not classify myself as like a good mentor because I mean, you're always learning, but I'm looking for people that have been doing this stuff for years. I mean, I listen to your podcast, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of that stuff just educates me. I mean, shoot, last year I tried using a decoy for the first time deer hunting, and I'm like, this ain't gonna work. And I'll be dang, sure enough, I mean, it was a little tiny buck, but he came in, but like that's like the reward factor. It's like I tried something new and it worked. You take someone scouting and you get out into the woods and you don't have any trail cameras out there and you get set up and even if it's just like a doe that walks by, the fact that it's like, man, I put that time in, I did this, I had a doe that came by, the wind was good, like, dude, you can pat yourself on the back and I can walk out of the woods like, even though you didn't shoot something, but it's like, man, what I did is starting to pay off and you can start seeing like that light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what we're trying to hopefully accomplish with outdoor driven, for 2026 with, archery, but just in general, just deer hunting. I don't want to put someone in a rifle blind without them understanding, the whys behind it. Again, the story that I always talk about, the bullets in my truck, the guy that I took deer hunting and we should have went duck hunting. I don't know if I told this the last time I was on, but just a big thing about who we are and what we do. I had a guy that it was like wind and rain. Again, and when I say duck hunting, I mean it was the best duck hunting weather ever. But someone reached out to me and they're like, hey, my husband's struggling. He was in the military, got out. Just life is just going in a downward spiral. And I 100% relate to that because like the outdoors is what saved my life. It was that deer hunt. And I know we talked about that. And the conversations that we had in that deer blind, it got really personal in there. But it was because he felt comfortable. He knew my story, he knew my background, and we opened up and he handed me that bullet. And he's like, I don't know if you know what this means. And I said, I do. And he's like, I was about that round was in the chamber and I was ready to take my life. And he's like, just based off of our conversations we had, he's like, I want you to have it. And that has been always a huge motivational drive for me, just knowing that it's like, we didn't see a deer, and that's why I talked about our deer camp last year. The guy I was with, we hunted for 3.5 days and we didn't see a single deer. It's like, were we doing something wrong? I don't know. It was just bad luck possibly, but, again, we had some good conversations and you can tell after some of our trips, you can see the stress just kind of relieved off of some of these men and women. You know, not every trip's going to have the same story. Not every trip you're going to have those kind of conversations in, but, you know, it's the fact that you can be out there in the woods and just find that peace and that calm. And, you know, there's a Vietnam vet that we took out my first year, and we went deer hunting, and that man didn't say a single word. You know, I tried a little bit, but I within reason, you know, and we came back in from that morning and we went and grabbed a bite to eat, and he's sitting there and he looked up at me and he said, you know, that was the first time in probably over 30 years that I can honestly say that I felt calm. And for me, I mean, it gave me, I got goosebumps again, but like it just gave me chills because he said, I have tried so many different things. And he's like, you know, I've tried doing the walks in the woods and stuff, but the fact that I was able to sit there and just be calm and just listen to just nature in general, like just how therapeutic that was. You know, it's very rewarding when I get those kind of testimonies from, you know, these servicemen and women talking about that kind of stuff. And, you know, that's why I'm hoping to try to get, you know, more deer hunts in. You know, I know we got some planned this year, but, you know, this is my third year and I'm still growing. I'm still trying to learn, you know, how to run this the best way that I can. I mean, I just started a brand new job myself last week. I used to work at Dow Chemical. I left them and I started a new job with Job Site Services, and it's a lot for me to take in, but you know, I'm still trying to find that balance with family, work, God, and obviously outdoor driven.
So with that, like, what do you need for outdoor driven? So if there's like someone who's out there listening right now and they've like made it this far and they're like, man, I really like what Andrew's doing, you know, how can I help? Or, you know, what are some things that like you guys need, like that your discussions that you have with your board or anything like that as you look to the future?
I mean, you know where I'm going to say first. I mean, I'm a nonprofit. I don't make a single dime, a penny, nothing off of this. And what it boils down to is always going to be finances. You know, we need those donors. We need those people that are willing to donate money to help support our cause, to support our mission. You know, but like the Saginaw Basin Land Conservancy, they own this property that we go on, but we have sole rights to it. And I would love to try to find more private property that is not being utilized that we can use for outdoor driven. You know, I've had people in the past, like if you know a farmer, people that, hey, we got a farm, we just want to get some does killed off, please reach out to me. I will throw a veteran first responder in a heartbeat your way to go harvest a doe off of your property. But I want to have more stuff that is for outdoor driven. You know, I want to have that property where I don't have to sit there and, hey, Adam, are you guys going to be using your property, you know, the end of October? Yeah, because I've had some people that have that have opened up their property to us, which I'm very thankful for. But, you know, I would let them know, like, hey, I'm going to try to come out this weekend. They're like, okay, well then we show up on Saturday only to find out that on Friday there was 3 other people that they gave permission to that went through and they hunted the exact same spot that we were in, you know. So just to be able to kind of have a place that we can, you know, a safe space that we can take some of these veterans first responders out to let them, you know, get into the woods to go hunting, you know, whether it's for deer or turkey, you know, that is something that we're really trying to press to get. But it's just the networking. You know, I know people that listen to this, they're connected in with other outdoor groups, outdoor organizations, outdoor companies. I mean, we're always open for other types of sponsorships, you know, for anything and everything that we can try to, you know, just help these you know, these deserving veterans and first responders.
Awesome. And so like, how do they reach out to you? Do they reach out to you personally? Is there an outdoor driven, you know,
Yes, yeah.
frequently asked
So
questions page, anything like that?
Yeah, so we're on social media. So Facebook is our main one that we do a lot of stuff through, but we have Instagram and TikTok, but we also have a website which is outdoordriven.org, and people can go on there. They can click on upcoming trips, there's a donate. We have our email address on there. My personal cell phone's on there. So if anyone is trying to get a hold of, Outdoor Driven or myself, they can always get on there. The one email that is through the website is info@outdoordriven.org. People can send information they want on there, request anything, questions. My cell phone's always on me. I say this, whenever I'm on a podcast, just like, unlike the Sergeant Major, I got the open door policy. You can come on my door anytime. I do have an open phone policy. I might not pick up the phone, but I just tell anyone, if you're going to call me, whether it's to help Outdoor Driven or if you need help, text me, call me. I guarantee if I see a voicemail, no matter what I'm doing, I will listen to it and I will call back as soon as I can, especially if it's one that is someone that needs help with something. We're always trying to think outside the box, try to help out as many of these servicemen and women as possible.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to following along, and I hope that this helps you find some properties and some funding and any of that stuff. So I'll definitely be in touch with you through the season to kind of see how everything is going. But thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate this opportunity.
Hit the road for fun and heartwarming fishing adventures with the Real American Road Trip.
I just want to hook up one time. I just need to hook up one time.
Catch the Waypoint Original Series every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Waypoint TV channel. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.
I did get a bite. I have gotten a bite. I did feel it.
From dawn to dusk and every moment in between, Captain Justin Leake and Meredith McCord have an exciting adventure waiting in the water. Catch Chasing the Sun, Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.